I did my intros and I think I have the recording going.
You do?
Okay. So there ends up being a lot to marketing, and sometimes you just have to figure out where to get started. And, these are just a few things to think about as you get into the marketing, and hopefully this photo will catch your attention. Because the first question is really to ask, is your animal finished? Well, this hog is way over finished. I had a colleague send it to me last week. It was a 900-pound pig that they had slaughtered in central New York. And I just thought it was kind of an attention grabber. He's way over finished. So as you learn more about the farming side of it, production, you'll get a better handle on when an animal is really ready to get slaughtered. Another question to start thinking about is, will you sell meat or will you sell a live animal? That kind of is a thought. If you're going to go with USDA slaughter, you can sell those retail cuts or buy the single cut. I'll try not to get too much jargon in here for the newer farmers, just so you don't get confused. And if I say something that's confusing, please ask, because I kind of get into this same mode of, get into the work stream, and I don't always remember, not everybody knows all the lingo. So if you're going to get into freezer trade, you can take your livestock to a custom exempt plant for that custom slaughter. And that's where you're really selling a live animal. And you could sell it a whole animal in halves, quarters, eighths. But that's where you need to know who your customers are ahead of time, because they're the ones that are actually getting the animal slaughtered. There's some resources that I can share with you that goes into a little bit more detail, but that's kind of the difference between USDA and custom. So USDA, you can sell single cuts. If you had a freezer on the farm, you go to a farmer's market, you have to have that USDA inspection. So there's a lot more flexibility with that USDA. You still can sell it by the half or quarter, but at least it's, if you're going to sell single cuts, that's where you need to take your animals for processing. So what's really brought the whole, or at least increased the whole issue with local meat, the COVID situation, the COVID pandemic really increased that demand for local meat. A lot of the processors got really booked up. It ended up being, to some degree, over a year out to get a processing appointment. There were some farms that their pigs weren't even born yet, and they had to make their appointments just on speculation. So after the first of the year, that really has opened up a little bit. It's been a little easier, but once you kind of get a handle on, okay, I need to get an animal process in, say, 3 months, 4 months, even 6 months out, you need to start thinking about that appointment. Maybe a little easier with beef, since they don't finish quite as quickly as other animals, but it's just part of the whole planning process. So I just kind of want to spend a little bit of time on this, developing a marketing plan. I saw this, or I heard about this grid. I listened to a podcast and I was really intrigued, to set up a grid to kind of come up with your marketing plan. I have always found over the years that farmers know how to raise their animals, but they really don't know how to market. So if you get your paper out or you do it on the computer, start to get some thoughts in writing. If you're on paper, you can use a pencil so you can erase and redo it. But keep in mind that center there. What makes you unique? What's unique about your farm? And what will make that product stand out compared to your competition, your neighbors? So we're going to start with the why. and I have my why here. I learned a little bit more about starting with why. I participated in the New York Beef Council's Beef Corps training in February. And this is how I learned to kind of generate my elevator pitch. You know, it's kind of a 30-second spiel. You can tell somebody what you do. So mine is a little different since I work for Extension. So my elevator pitch is to support New York agriculture so that farmers can continue to raise quality, sustainable products. So if you can sum up your whole operation, what you want to do in one sentence, it's a great way to get started. You know, you run into somebody in the grocery store and you get talking, you can say, well, I do whatever. So just a way to get started here. The next piece is what. That's a little more straightforward. Are you going to sell halves, quarters, even down to eighths, single cuts? You know, you can come up with some creative family bundles, or will you sell live animals? Your distribution, you know, will you go to farmers markets? Will you have people come to the farm, visit a farm stand, or have a freezer in the garage, something on that order, or on the porch? Are you willing to have your customers go directly to the processor to pick up? That's what some farmers do with that custom exempt when they're selling that way. Or, you know, maybe you'll offer to deliver is kind of a bonus for your customers. So who is your target customer? This is a toughie. This doesn't necessarily mean this is the only person or only type customer that you'll sell to, but maybe it's families with kids looking for that convenience of the buying in a quantity. Or maybe you're going to target the foodies that are looking for those special cuts. In a way, it kind of makes me think of, I don't know if you're familiar with a butter meat company in Perry. She kind of targets some of those odd cuts, or those sort of, in some ways, old-fashioned cuts that she's gotten a lot of, she's developed a good clientele there. She has mature dairy cows processed and sells retail cuts. So that's just another piece to think about. And maybe if you work with your processor, you can add some value to some of those cuts too. Also keep in mind, most people don't have that full-size freezer anymore. So if you're going to sell bulk by the freezer trade, you know, custom exempt, you may have to be able to cut that down into smaller portions. Competition. There's a lot of people out there that are trying to sell local meat. You know, is your competition your neighboring farm? You know, what can you do to maybe stand out and be more distinct, be more unique than your neighbor? And I just hope everybody realizes at our scale here, nobody is in competition with a grocery store. If somebody wants inexpensive meat, they're going to run into Wegmans, Tops, or whatever the other grocery stores in the area. So are you going to include any product claims with any of your marketing materials? You know, do you have you raise your animals naturally? Are they organic, grass-fed? You know, even just local is a pretty strong claim these days that tends to go a long ways right now. One of my pet peeves is when people when producers use those claims and they don't actually do it. So make sure you can verify your practices and you follow all of those rules that you're supposed to follow with those claims. Another key piece here is to, you know, run your farm like a business. You know, you really need to take that marketing seriously and treat it not as a hobby. So what's your cost structure? And really, to be profitable, you need to know what your cost of production is. And as I go through this, and as I've gone through this today, earlier, just in review, we could spend a lot more time on each one of these pieces, but just to give you some ideas for things to think about. All cooperative extension educators ask a lot of questions, so this to get you to think about some more things. So how much do you have to sell? How many animals will you be raising annually? You need to kind of keep it in mind as you move your marketing forward. You need to keep your production there. You need the production to keep the marketing going. So it's kind of, you kind of find that it's almost in unison there. You need to keep both moving forward. So if you're just getting started with marketing, who will you be selling to? Sometimes it's a little easier to get started with neighbors or friends, family, coworkers, and sometimes that word of mouth will travel around and you'll increase or you'll gain some customers that way. Excuse me. So how far, or what's your geographic region? How far do you want to reach to get some customers? Sometimes that depends on if you have some neighbors that are selling meat as well. If you can, and we're in such rural areas for the most part with farms, you may have to kind of broaden out to sell what you have available. I'll just kind of touch on this, as another target audience, since just selling live animals, there's some ethnic markets, some ethnic customers that would actually come to the farm and do some on-farm slaughter if you're open for that. I know, lots of times goats are more popular with some of the ethnic communities. So there's some liability and some other risk involved with having people on your farm, but that's just another option. It kind of takes the processing out of the picture if farmers or customers come and do the slaughter there and then take the carcass, take the animal with them. So what if you can't sell everything that you need to is meat? There are some other options, whether it's auction barns, breeding stock, some of those options, maybe even just sell to a neighbor or something let them try to sell it as well. Sometimes there's some partnerships that can get formed if somebody's looking to, they run out, maybe you could sell some to your neighbor or something. There's different options available if you can expand out your network and maybe make some connections that way. So, and remember, marketing is an action word. So this is another tool for kind of marketing. Meat Suite is a website, and it provides an opportunity for customers to come find you if they're looking for meat. You can add your farm information, add some claims, there's a sign up button, and then you'll get approved and you'll get posted to the website. And under this tab here where it says learn more, there's a lot of information available if you have questions about claims, or if customers have questions, they can go here and do some reading. There's a lot of information on, production practices, weights and pricing. There's a price calculator tool that we could probably spend an hour or so looking into. Maybe we could save that for another evening. Whole animal buying guides, and just some explanation there, an article on halal meat. So this is just one piece. If you're looking to learn a little bit more, it's a great website to get started with. Some more resources if you know your cuts or you want some more advice. There's materials resources available, and they're paid for through your checkoff dollars when you sell an animal, whether it's a beef animal or a hog. You're supposed to pay into the checkoff program to support marketing and promotion in the state. And it's a mandatory program, and that's all I'm going to say about it. The Beef Council has just did recently some marketing your beef locally, a couple of webinars they ran earlier this winter. That's what the top link is. And then underneath they have kind of an order form for direct marketing resources that they provide those for free. You can share those with your customers, or list the cuts of animals. They have recipes, all sorts of information, and the New York Pork Producers has some of that as well, you know, recipes to share. If you happen to go to farmers markets, it's great to kind of start some conversation that way. Share some recipes on how to prepare some of the meats that you have for sale. This is, you know, another option, Facebook. That's a great way to promote your farm and for marketing. These are just a few, some of the ones that I have been involved with over the years. Customers just love to see what's going on the farm. And there's no better person to kind of tell that story of production than the farm owner, him or herself. This top picture was from a farm in Monroe County that I have worked with over the years. He was doing some brush cleanup in the pasture, and he started it on fire, and the cattle just gathered around, and I just thought that was the coolest picture there. It was rather popular. And then the one down here, this was the first calf of this season. You know, just people like to see those kind of pictures, a little bit of sunshine and see those new animals. But you need friends so you can share that out. And I think, you know, the whole logarithms of Facebook, you know, you share it and then it can get shared farther. And I am not a Facebook expert, so I would have to ask somebody else to come and talk about that. Websites are another option. There's some free templates available you can find online, and they'll kind of give you guidance on, you know, layout and what to include, you know, nice pictures, some of that. And there's some, you know, some services out there too that'll help you develop a website. And it makes it look professional when you either use a template or have somebody help you do that layout. So what else? You know, have you thought about a farm logo? You know, some of the local penny savers. Has anybody done that? I thought I heard somebody ask something. Yeah. They'll help with some promotional materials, do some of that design work for you. When I was doing a little searching to put this little slide set together, I ran across this Adobe Spark logo maker, and you can actually design a farm logo for free. You may have to set up an account, but it just pick a kind of an icon and add your farm name and a little quote underneath, and away you go. It was pretty straightforward to do it. This, I saw this farm sign earlier this week, you know, quarters and halves taking orders. I thought that was a unique way. It's on a main road. You know, it was fairly neatly done. I think that's an important piece so it doesn't look too, you know, you don't want to get too hokey, too low key on it. You want to make it look semi-professional anyways. And I know there's some on this in the meeting tonight that have used Craigslist to help market some meat. You know, another option may be classified ads. That's a rather inexpensive way to get the word out. maybe even a larger, little rectangular ad, maybe the next size up or something in the Penny Saver or local papers. Many of the extension offices have local food guides. That would be kind of another way to list yourself, what you have available and what the location of your farm. So it's still, how do you find your customers? This is maybe when you get a little more sizable, have an open house on the farm, have visitors come in, whether it's have refreshments. Ice cream is always good, even if that's not what your market is, but it's a way to entice people in to stop. Develop some brochures, flyers, business cards. It's wise to get those done professionally as well, just so they look neat, presentable. They look professionally done. You can leave those in some stores or post those on bulletin boards. Another option there. There's some websites out there for local food. I know one in particular is called Local Harvest, and it targets, I know New York State, and it may go beyond that as well. If you did a search for Local Harvest, it'll bring it up and you can add your farm to the list. Excuse me, I was looking at a few this afternoon and it was for the area in Western New York. And another way, maybe you sell through a vegetable CSA, community supported agriculture. I have known some farms that will partner up with those vegetable CSAs, so they provide, maybe a few cuts of meat a week or however often the share goes out. I do know some farms that they have increased their production enough where they grow vegetables and enough meat, so they have their own CSAs available. Farmers markets, there's several of them around. It's a great way to maybe meet people and to excuse me, develop maybe an email list. So you have some emails for potential customers, and you can send out a farm newsletter even once a month or every few weeks, couple of weeks. It's just a great way to list what's going on in the farm with some nice photos. And then maybe you list what you have available for sale or what your upcoming, market season or availability would be. It's just another tool in your marketing toolbox